For decades, Apple and China formed the most successful partnership in modern business. Apple's alliance with China didn't just build iPhones, it reshaped the global economy and made Apple the world's first trillion-dollar company. But now, that partnership is under strain. The handshake that built an empire has become a source of tension and risk, not just for Apple, but for the world. This relationship shows both the immense wealth global business can create, and the deep vulnerabilities of dependence. What happens when the interests of a company, a superpower, and its rival no longer align? We're seeing the answer play out now. The fallout touches everyone, from factory workers in Shenzhen to iPhone customers in Ohio. This is more than a business story, it's a geopolitical saga with billions of dollars and the future of global trade at stake. We'll explore how Apple's China partnership was built, the benefits it brought, and the forces now tearing it apart. This is a story about a trillion-dollar gamble facing its greatest test. For Apple, its business model is on the line. For China, its role as the world's factory is being challenged. The Apple-China story is a microcosm of the forces shaping the 21st century. Apple's deep ties to China began with Tim Cook, the architect of its global supply chain. In the late 1990s, Cook saw China's potential, not just cheap labor but scale, speed, and a government eager for foreign investment. When China joined the WTO in 2001, Cook seized the opportunity to build a manufacturing ecosystem unlike any before. Apple's move to China was pivotal. The company, then struggling, found a solution in China's vast, motivated workforce and rapid infrastructure development. This enabled Apple to produce hundreds of millions of devices with unmatched precision and speed. Foxconn, led by Terry Gou, became Apple's key partner, building massive factory cities like Zhengzhou, iPhone City, capable of producing 500,000 iPhones a day. This scale gave Apple a huge competitive edge, launching new products globally and meeting demand instantly. Apple invested billions in equipment and training. China provided a flexible, powerful manufacturing engine. If Apple needed a last-minute design change, thousands of engineers and workers could mobilize overnight. This fusion of American design and Chinese industrial power created a winning formula. It set the stage for Apple's meteoric rise and cemented China as the world's workshop. The partnership was deep and symbiotic, not just simple outsourcing. Apple's success became intertwined with China's economic transformation. Together, they defined the next 2 decades of global commerce. But this foundation would soon be tested. For over a decade, Apple and China's partnership delivered spectacular results. Apple gained high-quality, large-scale manufacturing at low cost, fueling massive profits and innovation. The iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch all owe their existence to China's manufacturing power. Apple's stock soared, making it the world's most valuable company. China, in turn, gained millions of jobs and a new middle class, transforming cities like Shenzhen into tech hubs. Chinese workers learned advanced manufacturing and supply chain skills, fueling the rise of domestic tech giants. China also became a crucial market for Apple, with the iPhone becoming a status symbol. At its peak, China accounted for nearly a quarter of Apple's revenue. The relationship created a feedback loop. China built iPhones, then bought them, fueling shared prosperity. Apple needed China's scale and market. China needed Apple's investment and expertise. For years, this was globalization's win-win story, but the golden age was not destined to last. The forces of change were gathering. Cracks in the Apple-China relationship appeared as politics shifted. The US-China trade war put Apple in the crossfire, threatening tariffs and creating uncertainty. Apple's once stable supply chain became a vulnerability. Labor conditions in Chinese factories drew global criticism, tarnishing Apple's image despite stricter oversight. Data privacy and censorship became flashpoints, with Apple making controversial concessions to operate in China. Meanwhile, China began championing its own tech giants, aiming to reduce reliance on foreign firms. Rising nationalism and policy shifts made the environment more competitive and less welcoming for Apple. The golden age was ending. Apple's challenges in China are now visible in the numbers. In late 2024, iPhone shipments in China dropped 25%, shrinking Apple's market share and putting it neck and neck with Huawei. Huawei's comeback, powered by a locally made chipset, sparked patriotic buying and surged its sales. Apple responded with rare price cuts, signaling real pressure. Brand loyalty alone is no longer enough. Apple must fight for every sale. China's economic slowdown compounds the problem, with falling consumer confidence and weaker demand. Premium smartphones are less of a priority for cautious consumers. Apple faces a perfect storm: fierce local competition, rising nationalism, and a slowing economy. The numbers tell a clear, worrying story for Apple's future in China. The easy days are over. Apple is now caught in the middle of a US-China tech and trade war. Washington sees Apple's dependence on China as a strategic risk, pressuring it to bring jobs home. Beijing views Apple as a symbol of American tech, making it a potential target for retaliation. Apple must navigate demands from both governments, acting as both business leader and diplomat. Tariffs and regulatory threats create constant uncertainty, with the risk of iPhones becoming unaffordable overnight. Every decision, where to store data, where to manufacture, is fraught with political risk. Apple has become a pawn in a high-stakes geopolitical game. To reduce risk, Apple is pursuing a China Plus One strategy, building manufacturing hubs in India and Vietnam. India offers a huge labor force and market, but scaling up has been slow and challenging. Apple has begun shipping iPhones from India to the US, but infrastructure and quality issues remain. Vietnam is producing AirPods and iPads, but its capacity can't match China's scale. No single country can replicate China's unique combination of scale, speed, and skilled labor. Diversification is necessary, but it's expensive and complex. Apple's supply chain is becoming more fragmented and costly. Escaping China's orbit is proving nearly impossible. The process will take years and billions of dollars. Apple's dilemma is clear: reduce risk, but at a steep price. Industry analysts warn that Apple's China challenges threaten its long-term growth. Ming-Chi Kuo projects iPhone shipments will fall below market expectations, signaling the end of predictable growth. Experts say Apple now faces intense pressure from resurgent local brands like Huawei. Apple is shifting from expansion to retention, using promotions and flexible payment plans to keep premium customers. Even good news like tariff exclusions is seen as temporary relief in a volatile environment. The risk of future tariffs or punitive measures remains high. Apple's dependence on China, once its greatest asset, is now its biggest liability. The company faces monumental challenges: diversifying supply chains, navigating politics, and fending off new competitors. The next 5 years will be far tougher for Apple than the last. The Apple-China story has entered a turbulent new chapter. The once symbiotic relationship is fraying under geopolitical rivalry and economic headwinds. Apple must diversify its supply chain while defending its market share in China. This crisis is a powerful illustration of how global business and politics are now inseparable. The choices Apple makes will ripple across the world, shaping new centers of growth and a more complex global economy. The era of hyper-efficient, China-centric globalization is ending, replaced by a fragmented, uncertain world order. The Apple-China saga reveals both the potential and the risks of global interdependence. The next chapter will be shaped by the choices of companies, governments, and all of us.